In the quiet suburb of Evergreen, where life was supposed to be mundane and safe, the name Miss Violet had become a whisper of terror. She was the babysitter everyone eventually hired, known for her patience and the way she could make any child fall asleep with her lullabies. But behind that sweet facade lurked a nightmare. It began with the disappearance of little Tommy Thompson. One night, after his parents returned from their date, they found the house eerily silent. Miss Violet was nowhere to be seen, and Tommy's room was empty, save for his blood-soaked blanket. The police found no trace of either Tommy or the babysitter. Months passed, and the town tried to heal, chalking it up to an isolated tragedy. But then the pattern repeated. Each time Miss Violet was hired, the child under her care vanished, leaving behind only blood and silence. The fifth incident was the one that truly unveiled the horror. The Andersons returned to find their living room painted in gore. Their daughter, Emily, was found in the kitchen, her small body mutilated, a carving knife sticking out of her chest. The message on the wall, written in blood, was chilling. "They sleep so beautifully now." The police, desperate, pieced together the pattern. Miss Violet was always the last person seen with the children. Yet she had no history, no background check could trace her existence before she appeared in Evergreen. One night, Mark, a local journalist obsessed with solving the mystery, decided to set a trap. He advertised for a babysitter using his own child, Jake, as bait. He hid cameras around the house and waited in the basement, ready to confront the killer. Miss Violet arrived, her smile as warm as ever. Jake was already in bed, supposedly asleep, but Mark had given him strict instructions to pretend to sleep no matter what. Through the monitors, Mark watched as Miss Violet hummed a lullaby, her voice sweet and haunting. She checked on Jake, ensuring he was asleep. Then her demeanor shifted. The smile fell away, her eyes hollow and cold. She went to the kitchen, returning with a large butcher's knife. Mark's heart raced, but he waited, camera still recording. Miss Violet approached Jake's bed, lifting the knife high, but just as she was about to strike, Mark burst into the room. The confrontation was brief. Miss Violet was surprisingly strong, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. In the struggle, Mark managed to overpower her, pinning her down. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" Mark demanded, his voice shaking with rage and fear. Her laughter was the sound of nightmares. "I give them peace," she hissed. "In death, they escape the horrors of life. I am their liberator." Mark, in his horror, didn't notice the knife she still held until it was too late. With a sudden movement, she plunged it into her own chest, her blood spilling across the floor, mingling with the imagined blood of her victims. As she lay dying, her body seemed to shrink, her features distorting. The last thing Mark saw before he passed out was not a woman, but something inhuman, something ancient with eyes of pure malice. The police found no record of Miss Violet ever existing in any system. Jake was safe, but the town was left with more questions than answers. No one could explain the disappearance of the bodies or the true nature of the entity that had called itself Miss Violet. Evergreen was forever scarred. Parents now checked under beds not for monsters, but for signs of her return. The lullabies Miss Violet sang were never sung again, for they carried the echo of death. And every child now knew the story of the Crimson Sitter, whose lullabies would put you to sleep forever.